Okay, students, first of all, a very good morning to all my dear students. Okay, in our previous classes, we have successfully completed Unit 1 and Unit 2. And in our today's class, we are going to start with Unit 3. Okay, now Unit 3 consists of four parts. Okay, wherein you're going to understand in part 1 about the President of India. In part 2, you're going to study about the Prime Minister of India. And along with the Prime Minister, you're also going to study about the Council of Ministers. In part 3, you're going to study about Lok Sabha. And in part 4, you're going to study about Rajya Sabha. So our unit I have divided into four parts. Once more, I'm repeating. Our unit 3 consists of four parts, wherein in the first part of the unit, you're going to study about the President of India. Second part, you're going to study about the Prime Minister, and along with that, Council of Ministers. Part 3 about the Lok Sabha, and part 4 about the Rajya Sabha. So let's now start with the first part of Unit 3, which is the last unit for your portion or syllabus. The title of our Part A of Unit 3 is titled as President of India. Students, let me give you all the introduction. Okay? Our country, in the silent features of our country, India, or our in silent features of constitution, I have already explained you all that our country has adopted a parliamentary form of government. When we have adopted a parliamentary form of government, this means that in the system there are basically two types of executives. The first type of executive is called as the nominal executive, and the second type is real executive. Students, when I speak about parliamentary form of government, there are two types of executive. The first executive is the nominal executive, and the second one is real executive. When I speak about nominal executive, he is being regarded as the President of India. And when I speak about real executive, it consists of a cabinet which is created out of the total council of ministers and who is headed by the prime minister or PM of a country. So when I speak about parliamentary form of government, there are basically two executives. And in our today's class, we are going to speak about the nominal executive who is being regarded as the president of the country. Students, Article 52 states that there shall be a president of India who is considered to be the head of the country. Students, when I speak about the president of our country, he is the head of both central government as well as state government. In short, you all can say that he is the overall head of the entire union of the country. Students, when I speak about the president of the country, the executive powers of the union, which are decentralized into the state government as well as central government, are handed or you can say are vested in the hands of the president. And students, when I speak about the powers with the president, he shall exercise those powers, and as a president of our country, he should always and always exercise power in accordance with the constitution of our country, wherein he has to either directly exercise those powers, or you can say he can exercise them with the help of his subordinates. So, Article 52 clearly states that there shall be a president of a country and he shall be regarded as the president of our country, India, who is known to be the head of the country. When I speak about the head of the country, it consists of both central government as well as state government. So, this is the introduction wherein we studied that our country has adopted a parliamentary form of government which is divided into two: nominal executive and real executive. In the first part of Unit 3, we are studying the nominal executive. Students, when I speak about nominal executive, the president is regarded as to be the nominal executive, and our country, according to Article 52, states that there will be a president of our country who shall be regarded as the head of the country. And when I speak about the head of the country, he has the powers which are vested in his hands, wherein he has to work in coordination with the constitution of our country, whether he himself can exercise those powers or he can vest it in the hands of his subordinates. But he himself has to exercise those particular powers of the union, which comprises of state government as well as central government. Next, let us understand the qualification for election of President of India. So, what is the qualification required to be the president of our country? First and foremost, students, Article 58 clearly lays down what are the qualifications required for a person to be regarded or called as the president of India. First and foremost, he must be a citizen of India. Now, I have in our first unit, I have clearly explained you all who is being regarded as a president, who is regarded as a citizen of a country. And we have also dealt with Citizenship Act of 1955, wherein we understood how is a citizenship being adopted, who is called as a citizen of a country. So, first and foremost, to be the president of our country, he must be a citizen of India. He must have completed the age of 35 years. Minimum, he should have been completed or he should be above the age of 35 years. The third qualification is that he must be qualified or he must be a member of Lok Sabha, which is very, very important. And the fourth qualification states that he must not hold any office wherein he can get profits. He should not hold any office under the government of India. He should not hold any office under the government of any state in our country. He should not hold office under any local authority which is controlled by the said governments. So, when I speak about the qualification of a president, students, even though if the president is holding such office wherein he's running that office for his own profits, once he is being regarded or he's been elected as the president of India, and once he enters the office, he has to compulsorily vacate the office which he had hold or he was holding to earn profits. So these are the qualifications for the election of president of our country, India. Once more, I'm repeating, he must be a citizen of our country. He must have completed minimum the age of 35 years. He must be qualified member or he should be a member of Lok Sabha. And fourth, very importantly, he should not hold any office of profit under the government of India, under any states, or you can say any authority which is controlled by the above governments. Okay? Now, so here let us study the next part, which speaks about emoluments allowances of president. When I speak about emoluments allowances of the president, students, the president is entitled to use his official residence wherein he need not pay the rent. He uses that particular residence free of cost. Secondly, very importantly, the salary of the president is 1,50,000 per month, but this has been revised. Okay, in the amendment of 2018, it has been amended wherein, first of all, it was amended to 3.5 lakhs per month. Later, with new amendment, again, it has made 5.5 lakhs per month. So it is not fixed, it is continuously been revising. Okay, next, when I speak about the president of a country, he draws rupees 3 lakhs per annum as a pension after his retirement, and in all, he is allowed to spend a total amount of 15 lakhs 26,000 a year. Now, he is allowed to spend a total amount of 15 lakhs 26,000 means what? He is allowed to spend money on his travel, maybe entertainment, any discretionary grants he wants to grant for some purpose. Maybe he can use that amount for his staff, for his household expenses, or his own allowances. So when I speak about emoluments or allowances of a president, first and foremost, you should understand that his residential his residence will be considered for free of cost. He is not entitled to pay rent. The salary, according to the earlier amendment, was 1,50,000 per month, but due revisions have been made to it. And very importantly, in the amendment of 2018, it has crossed about 5.5 lakhs per month. He draws rupees 6 lakhs per annum as a pension after retirement. And very importantly, he is allowed to spend total amount of 15 lakhs 26,000, wherein he can use that amount for his own purpose. He can use it for travel. He can use it for some entertaining or entertainment purpose. He can give discretionary grants for several purposes. And very importantly, he can use it even for his own staff or household purposes. Okay, so till now we studied the introduction, wherein we understood that we have adopted a parliamentary form which is divided into two, nominal and real executive. The nominal executive is the president of our country, and the real executive is the prime minister, wherein there is a cabinet which is headed by the prime minister along with the council of ministers. Then Article 52 clearly states that there shall be a president of our country who is regarded as the head of the country. All the powers are vested of the union in the hands of the president, wherein he has the powers of both central as well as state government, and he shall work in coordinates with the constitution of our country. Then I spoke about the qualifications of president of our country. I told you that he should be a citizen of the country. He should have been completed the age of 35 years. He must be a member of Lok Sabha. He must not hold any office of profit wherein he can earn profit under the government of India which is central government as well as state government or any other local authority, even though if he has or he's already holding so, once he enters the office, he has to vacate it once he enters the office of president of our country. Okay. Next, when I spoke about emoluments or allowances, students, the president is entitled to use resident which is free of cost. He need not pay rent. His salary is continuously revised. He draws a pension per annum, round about 3 lakhs, which is again revised. And he is also allowed to spend amount wherein he can use it for his own purpose. Okay. Now, okay. Now let us understand what is the procedure for election of a president. Okay. So now we are going to understand what is the procedure. Students, first I'll give you all some introduction, then we will study what is Article 54. Okay. See, when I speak about the president of our country, first and foremost, you should understand that he is not elected directly by the people of the country. Once more, I'm repeating, when I speak about the president of the country, he is not elected directly by the people of the country. The president of our country is elected. No doubt he is elected, he is not selected because we have a democratic form of government. Now, when I speak about the president of our country, he is elected, but he is elected indirectly. See, our president of our country is elected, but he is elected not directly by the people, but he is elected indirectly. Now, why is he elected indirectly? Because, students, we have a parliamentary form of government. In the initial slides, I told you when we have a parliamentary form of a government, we have a nominal head. Okay. Now, when I speak about nominal head, students, he is being regarded as rubber stamp. Now, what do you mean by rubber stamp? He is the one wherein all the powers are vested in his hands. He is the one who is the topmost authority. He is the one who is considered to be a decision maker. And all the powers of the country are vested in the hands of the government, wherein they are vested in the hands of the president, wherein he looks into the affairs or matters of the ruling government. So, what happens is when I speak about our president of a country, he is not directly elected by the people of our country, but he is indirectly elected by the people of our country. Okay. Now, what has happened? What has happened is when I speak about why is he elected as indirectly by the people of the country, because students, direct election won't help or won't benefit our country. Because when I speak about election of president of our country, it is based or it involves a huge expenditure, which is not possible for a country like India. And what happens is, since he is the nominal head, it is not possible for him to be elected by all the citizens of the country. Hence, what happens is, he is a direct, he is indirectly elected by several representatives of the country. But very importantly, you should understand that he is elected and not selected. Why? Because we have a democratic form of government wherein every member of the country has a right to vote, has a right to choose, has a right to have an equal say. Okay? Now, when I speak about prime minister, or you can say when I speak about the Council of Ministers, at that point of time, he is or they are being elected directly by the people of our country. But when I speak about the president of our country, students, he is indirectly elected. Now, how is he indirectly elected is being explained in Article 54. So I gave you introductory part, or I explained you in my introduction who is being regarded as a president of a country and how is his election taking place. Okay, so once more I'm repeating, students, when I speak about the president, he is not elected directly by the people of the country, but he is elected indirectly by the people of the country. Why? Because he is considered to be a nominal head, and he is a person who is the rubber stamp. And when I speak about rubber stamp, he is the one who is the decision maker. And very importantly, there is a huge expenditure which has to be spent for election of this post or position called as president, which involves a huge expenditure which is not affordable by our country, and hence the representatives elect him. It is not that he is selected, but he is elected. But he is elected by whom? He is elected by some representatives. So Article 54 clearly states that there is a procedure wherein there is election of a president which is done. So, students, Article 54 states that the president shall be elected by the members of an electoral college which consists of, first one, they consist of elected members of both the houses. Now, which are the two houses? When I speak about two houses, it includes Raj Sabha, it includes Lok Sabha. In short, it is called as upper house as well as lower house. Next, he is also elected by the members of the legislative assemblies of the state. The state representatives on behalf of the people of their particular state elect the president of the country. Once more, I'm telling you all, the president of a country is not directly elected by the people of the country, but he is indirectly elected by the people or the representatives of the country. So when I speak about Article 54, students, there is a electoral college which is consists of or which includes the elected members. Now, who are the elected members? These are the elected members of both the houses. When I speak about both the houses, it includes Lok Sabha as well as Raj Sabha, which is also called as upper house and lower house. And it also consists of elected members who are being called as the representatives of the legislative assemblies. So when I speak about legislative assembly, students, they are the state representatives of a particular state. Now, when I speak about I will give you all a brief note on procedure for election. Okay. See, you need not go so much in detail, but just for your general knowledge, I'm telling you. Here, when I'm speaking about election of a president, students, the election uses a single transferable vote method. Now, what do you mean by single transferable vote? I'll explain you. See, when I speak about single transferable vote, students, you have to understand that one voter or a single person, or you can say a single individual, casts a single vote in the election. Okay, he gives his vote, he casts his vote, wherein what he does, he elects multiple winners. This is single transferable vote. Now, what he does, a single individual casts his vote wherein he elects multiple winners. Now, what do you mean by that? See, what happens is an individual marks his ballot or mark their ballot wherein he marks it for the most preferred candidate according to him. Which candidate he want to vote, no? He marks that ballot. Okay. Now, after marking, what happens is he just will not mark for one, but what he will do, he also marks up for backup preferences. See, now what happens here is a vote goes to the voter's first preference. Okay. Now, but what happens sometimes? The first preference is eliminated due to some reason. Then, instead of that vote being waste or not considered, or you can say being thrown away, the person has given backup winners or backup preferences, no? The vote is transferred to the next preference which is given by that individual. Okay. Even if that is eliminated, that person is eliminated, then third preference will be considered. By this, what will happen, students? The votes will not go on wasting. So, president is elected by a single transferable vote, wherein an individual, the representatives, are asked to give their preferences in their ballot, but they are not required to give only single preferences. They have to give up backup preferences also. So that if due to less vote or n number of reasons, if a person wherein a person has given some person and vote, he is not been considered or he is eliminated due to n number of reasons, the next preference will be considered. Even if he is not, even he is not qualified or he is not considered, if he is eliminated, the next preference has been considered. This is called as single transferable vote. And students, very importantly, voting takes place very importantly by secret ballot, wherein your vote is kept highly confidential. It is very important when I'm speaking about election of the president, the votes are kept highly confidential. Now, what happens here is there is a nomination paper, okay, wherein what has happened is 50 members or 50 electors have to vote as proposers, and the other 50 has to vote as seconders. At that point of time, these votes have to be represented to the returning officers. Now, who are these returning officers? You can call this returning officers as the Secretary General of Lok Sabha or Secretary General of Raj Sabha. Then what happened? Each electorals or each person cast a different number of votes. Now I told you why they cast different number of votes, because there is single transferable vote, wherein if one person has to give his first preference and he also has to give multiple preference. And here, students, a general principle is being noted, wherein the total number of votes cast by the members of the parliament should be equal to the total number of votes casted by the legislative assemblies. So, once more, I'm telling you, when I'm speaking about Article 54, students, the president is elected. How is he elected? He is elected by indirect method. Now, how is he elected by indirect method? He is surely elected by the people of a country, but there is an electoral college which consists of elected members of both the houses, which consist of Raj Sabha and Lok Sabha, and elected members of legislative assemblies, the state representatives, in short. Okay. Now, what happens? Both of these are asked to give their votes or cast their votes. And how are they asked to cast their votes? Using single transferable vote, wherein they have to give their first preference as well as backup preferences. The basic principle is followed. The elected members of both the houses votes should be equal to the elected members of legislative or state representatives. After that, depending upon the number of votes, the president is being elected and he is not selected. So when I speak about Article 54, he is elected by two ways. First one, there are representatives of both the houses, which consist of upper house as well as lower house. and he is also elected by state representatives of the state. Okay, let's move to the next part. Okay, now vacancy in the office of president. Okay, vacancy means tenure or the term when it gets over, or dissolution, end of the office of president. First of all, expiry of the term. Students, before telling you the expiry, I will tell you that a president can hold a office after he has been selected or elected for 5 years. Okay. Once that tenure or that period of service gets over, that means 5 years are over. At that point of time, there is vacancy in the office of the president. New president has to be elected. There are chances wherein the same president can continue, but for that also the election procedure has to be followed. Okay, there might be chances wherein the same president has been continued, but he has to vacate the office, due procedure for election has to take place, then again he can continue as a president. And in terms of new president, the person has to vacate, new president will enter into the office of a president. Okay, next, vacancy can be created by death. If the president dies, the vacancy has been created. If the president gives resignation, if he resigns from the post, vacancy has been created. Removal by impeachment. I will tell you in my next slide what do you mean by removal by impeachment. Now, if he is suffering from some sort of disease, illness, wherein if he is not able to discharge his functions or perform his functions at that point of time, he has to vacate the office. And if there are some electoral faults wherein there is some faults fraud which takes place, or there is misrepresentation if it takes place in the electoral system, at that point of time he has to vacate the office. So students, when does the vacancy of the office of the president takes place? If the president expires, or death, there is death caused. Then if there is expiry of the term, that is if the tenure of 5 years gets complete, if the president resigns, there is removal of impeachment, which I'll be explaining in the next slide. If there is illness wherein he is not able to discharge or perform his activities, and last one is electoral faults. Now sometimes what happens, if the president resigns suddenly, or if he expires at that point of time, he if he is resigning, he has to send his resignation to the vice president. Or if he expires and suddenly if there is, you can say if there is vacancy which has been created, at that point of time, students, the vice president of our country will act as the president of our country. Once more, I'm telling you, when is the vacancy created? When the tenure is over, when there is expiry of the term. I explained you all. How is the expiry? Expiry is for 5 years. If there is death, if the president resigns, if there is illness, if there is some electoral fall, or if there is impeachment, then what will happen? A vacancy will be created. Nobody will be working as a president of a country. At that point of time, then who shall enter into the office? Immediately, the vice president of our country should act as the president of the country. And the vice president, if the president expires, or you can say there's expiry of the term, if he resigns, can act as a president for a maximum period of 6 months. Within 6 months, new president has to be elected, and he has to enter the office of the president. Okay, now in case, imagine even the vice president is not there, the vice president also expires, even his term also expires, even he resigns. At that point of time, the chief justice of India is required to officiate the presidentship in our country. Okay, but when I speak about when the president is ill, when he's not able to discharge his duties, or whether suddenly there is vacancy created, the vice president of our country acts like a president of our country. Okay, very importantly, when vice president also resigns, even if there is expiry of his period, that at that point of time, what will happen? The president will the chief justice of a country will work as a president of the country. Okay. Now, I was telling you all, I will explain you all impeachment of the president. Students, impeachment of a president is a ground wherein there is a sudden vacancy, or there is a vacancy which is created in the president's office. In short, when I speak about impeachment, impeachment means removal of the president, and you can only and only remove the president through constitutional process. Suddenly you cannot remove a president. You can vacate the president of the office of a president only and only through a constitutional process, and president can be removed from the office on the ground of violation of the constitution. So I was telling you all in this slide that when a president's office can be vacated, when he can be removed, when a vacancy is created. I told you first, when the expiry of term is over, that is 5 years, if there is death, if there is resignation, and removal by impeachment. Now, I told you what is removal by impeachment. The impeachment is considered as a ground wherein there is vacancy which is created. And students, when a president can be removed, a president can be only be removed from his post only if he violates the constitution. Now, what is the constitutional procedure to remove or impeach a president? We will understand. First and foremost, there should be a resolution to impeach. Impeach means what? To remove the president. And very importantly, it must be moved in either house. Either this resolution to remove the president must be moved in upper house, or else it has to be moved in lower house. Any house is okay. Either you can say Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. So once this resolution can be moved, it can be moved only and only after a notice, students. And when I speak about a notice, very importantly, you should understand that this notice have to be signed, or this notice has to be sanctioned by one fourth of the total members of the house. I am explaining you all the procedure of impeachment. How can a president be removed? First of all, there should be resolution passed, which I told you, and it should be passed either in upper house, or it has to be passed either in lower house. Then that resolution to remove that president must be attached with a notice, and this notice has to be sanctioned by at least one fourth of the total members of that particular house. Now, example, if there is a resolution which is passed by the Lok Sabha members, then one fourth of the total members of Lok Sabha should sign or give their sanction that they want to remove or impeach the president as he has violated the constitution. Okay. Next, the such a resolution charging that the president has violated the constitution must be passed by a majority of not less than two-thirds of the total members of that house before it goes to the other house for investigation. Once more, I'm telling you, procedure for impeachment, procedure for removal of president. It has to be passed by a resolution. Very importantly, it has to be moved in either house. Either it has to be moved in Lok Sabha, or it can be moved from Rajya Sabha. It is immaterial, but one house should pass it. Then very importantly, one fourth of the total members should give a notice saying that they want to remove, or they are removing they are giving a resolution to remove the president. Why? Because he has violated the constitutional powers. Next, when the notice has to be given by one fourth people, but very importantly, this resolution charging that yes, he has violated the constitutional powers has to be passed by not less than two-third member of that particular house. two-third at least out of the total members, two-third members should agree to it that yes, yes, he has violated the constitutional powers, and yes, he has to be impeached or he has to be removed. Then it has to go for the next house. Now imagine if there is Raj Sabha, or if you can say, I told you example of Lok Sabha. Okay, if Lok Sabha people one fourth have given in notice, and or they have given their approval, yes, they have to impeach or they want to remove, then two-third members at least have to agree from the Lok Sabha that he has violated the powers. Later, from Lok Sabha, it will move to Rajya Sabha. That is the other house. Then the charges revealed against the president has to be investigated. The other house will investigate, because now what has happened, the Lok Sabha members have said that yes, he has violated. Then the other house will investigate whether he has done so or no. Then the president will be called upon, wherein he will be having a right to be heard. He has a right to be defended. He has a right to speak about his charges, or he has a right wherein his words will be investigated. Then, when it is passed to the other house, no students, two-third of the total membership of the other house also should say that yes, they should also accept that they have been violated. So two-third of this house and two-third of the other house. Imagine if the Lok Sabha members have charged that he has violated the rights, then this has to be also accepted by the Raj Sabha. And how many members have to accept it? Two-third members of the majority should accept it, saying that yes, he has violated. Even if the second house declares that yes, he has violated the constitutional powers, at that point of time, the president can be removed from the post of the presidentship. Okay. Last one. What are the privileges given to the president? Students, he is not answerable to any court when he is performing his rights and duties. He cannot be prosecuted. He cannot be given any criminal proceedings. He cannot be prosecuted. There is no process for arrest. There is no process for imprisonment against a president. There should be no civil proceedings. Even though if there are civil proceedings, a notice has to be given in writing. At least 2 months have passed after the service that he has taken up presidentship. And very importantly, the notice should clearly state what is the nature of proceedings, the cause of action, the name, the residence, the description of the parties, and very importantly, he should clear the relief claim also. So these are the special privileges which are given to the president, wherein he'll not be answerable. There will be no criminal proceedings, no arrest, and no civil proceedings of the president. Okay, with this we conclude.